Okay, Kai, go ahead.
Hello. Just a second here. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to our quarterly community meeting. I'm Kylan, the Brighton Police Department Community Engagement Liaison. I would like to introduce you to Brighton Police Chief Matt Domenico. He's going to talk to us tonight about the past, present, and future of our department. Following the presentation, we will open it up to the public for Q&A session, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. So with that, I will hand it over to Chief.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm excited to come out and chat with everybody a little bit. We thought this first community meeting of 2023 would be a good opportunity with our some recent changes here to kind of introduce myself to everyone in the community. While I'm not new to the department, I am new to this role. So this is a good opportunity to kind of share a little bit about where we're headed. So I'm just going to jump right here into our presentation. So bear with me for just a moment while I get that set. And I'm hopeful that that looks good and everybody can see what they're supposed to be seeing. So again, this is our first community meeting of 2023. So that's exciting. And I'm just going to start with a little introduction of myself. So I started with the Brighton Police Department back in 2004. Apparently photography has improved quite a bit since 2004, but there's a grainy picture of me being sworn in by our municipal court judge back in 2004.
I'm going to interrupt you really quick. We can't see your presentation. If you could try to share it with us one more time so we could see that awesome picture of you back in the day. And there you go. And with your display settings, perfect. Okay.
How do we
There
look
we go. Now we can see it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for interrupting. I'm talking about a picture that nobody can see. So again, there's me way back in 2004 in that grainy photo. A little more hair and had a few less pounds underneath my belt, but that was me being sworn in by the judge back in 2004. I started in patrol, just like all of our new police officers start with the department. Spent a few months in the field training program before being released out there on my own to go provide police services to the city of Brighton. After a few years in patrol, I was able to secure a spot in investigations where I went up and investigated a wide variety of different crimes. At the time, especially, we were a general purpose investigations group, meaning you might investigate a property crime one day and then a serious violent crime the next. It really just depended on where you were at in the rotation and what the needs were at the time. After a couple of years in investigations, I tested and was selected for a spot as a sergeant. I went back down into patrol as a sergeant, spent a few years there before heading back up to investigations in a sergeant role. During that time in investigations as a sergeant, I also went down to our, at the time, newly formed Sexual Assault Task Force, which is a shared initiative with the Brighton Police Department and the Commerce City Police Department, where we pool resources to more effectively investigate crimes of sexual violence. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go in the presentation, but really some tremendous work that still comes out of that group today. They're a huge asset to both cities. After working down at the Sexual Assault Task Force for a while, I tested again for a promotion and was selected for a commander spot where I served in both patrol and youth services. After that, I tested for a deputy chief spot and got that, which I served in for a little over a year before being promoted to chief just here a week or so ago, a week and a half ago. A little bit about my educational background. I have a bachelor's degree from Colorado State University in criminal justice. I also recently finished my master's degree in law enforcement and public safety leadership from the University of San Diego. I'm a graduate of Northwestern University School of Police Staff and Command, and I've attended a number of other trainings to include some FBI LEADA trainings, which have been very beneficial. Outside of work, I'm a Colorado native. I grew up in the Arvada area. Most of my family's still there. I've been married to my wife, Carrie, for over 20 years, and we have a beautiful 11-year-old daughter together. We enjoy traveling, doing a little bit of camping in the summer times when we can, and pretty much anything outdoors. So I wanted to talk here a little bit while we have some old pictures of 2004 up about what the police department looked like back in 2004. When I was hired, I was the 51st officer of the department. Our authorized strength had just been up to 51. I was number 51 that was hired for the department. At the time, we provided animal control services, but the police department did not provide code enforcement. Our victim services was one full-time staff member that provided victim services along with a few dedicated volunteers. Some of the things that did not exist at the time, the Prairie Center was just a concept at the time, and some of the road work and infrastructure was starting to go in out there. The pavilions on the west side of town had not yet been built. And really, there was very little residential east of 34th Avenue. The police department was pretty new at the time as well, and was on what most considered kind of the edge, the eastern edge of town. Bromley Park subdivision was around, so there was some residential a little further east, but most of the new development we see north of Bridge Street wasn't there at the time. There was really not a whole lot else. South was really just a few kind of urban farm type properties, very little residential. Prairie Center, or I'm sorry, Prairie View High School was not there at the time. The Southgate subdivision was not there at the time. We did have a brand new police department building. We'd been in the building about 2 years at the time. And at the time we thought, wow, we have a ton of space. We're never going to grow into that building. Fast forward to today, where we are squeezing every square inch of usable room out of this building and literally bursting at the seams. The department at the time, the command staff was pretty small. We had a chief and then 2 captains that oversaw kind of the day-to-day operations of the department. There were 7 sergeants. We had no commanders, no deputy chief, and really the rest consisted of officers and detectives. City Hall was still over at 22 South 4th. We were not in the new building on further south on South 4th. And Brighton High School was really the only high school here in town. Lots have changed. So let's fast forward to 2023. Just to kind of give a little background on what 2023 looked like or looks like for the city. Now our residential's built out, as everyone's likely aware. North, all the way past County Road 2, all the way up to I-76 and beyond in a few spots on the east end, and south of 120th Avenue. We have several new schools in town: Prairie View Middle and High School, Innovations and Options, the Eagle Ridge Academy, Padilla Elementary, and others. Our department structure, as you can see in our organizational chart here, looks quite a bit different as well. As it stands today, and I say today because with a new chief, we are looking at we're looking at everything that we're doing organizationally and evaluating whether it's in the best interest of the organization, the community, everything involved. And we're considering some changes as we kind of move through that. But as we sit today, a few of these positions are vacant, but we have a chief, we have a spot for a deputy chief. We have 4 sworn commanders and 1 professional staff manager that comprise our command staff. We have 11 police sergeants spread out across the patrol division, professional standards, investigations, and our school resource officer division, our youth services division. We have 6 corporals that provide some additional supervision in our patrol division, and 56 officers, I say officers, but that includes school resource officers, detectives, all those positions. We have a full-time traffic safety unit comprised of a couple of different officers and a supervisor that respond out to all of our serious crashes and do that targeted enforcement to make our roadways safer. We have a sexual assault task force, which I mentioned before, which is comprised of a sergeant and a couple of detectives from Brighton, 3 detectives and a commander from Commerce City, and several professional staff to include victim services and some investigative technicians. We have a comprehensive community service unit. Our community services now does a lot more than animal control. They also are responsible for all the code concerns in the city. Our one victim advocate that we had back in 2004 is now the Brighton Office of Victim Assistance, which serves 4 different communities: Brighton, Commerce City, Fort Lupton, and Lochbuie. Another example of a great shared regional partnership that allows all of the participating cities access to far more resources than any one of us individually could provide. We participate in a multi-jurisdictional SWAT team with our neighbors to the south, Commerce City. This includes crisis negotiators, tactical operators, a number of others. And we're seeing the benefits of this level of service in our community every day. In fact, just today, our officers responded to a report of an autistic person with a knife that was threatening some people. Our crisis negotiators and our patrol officers were able to respond to that residence, completely de-escalate that situation without any use of force, and get this young man in contact with mental health professionals that can really help him through this. So really proud to have those services available for our community. I get asked a lot about what's out there on a daily basis when it comes to our especially our patrol staff that's out there serving our community, because I think there's a lot of confusion about what that looks like on a daily basis. We have right now we're running 12-hour shifts, so we have a day shift and a night shift. At any one given time, those shifts have between 4 and 6 officers, a corporal and a sergeant on duty. During the week, Monday through Friday, during regular business hours, there's obviously a lot of other staff members available and in the building. But that's a very few number of officers for a very large number of calls on a weekly basis. So it is, I think it's important for people to be aware of what's actually out there and why it's impossible for us to be everywhere at one time, but we do try and provide the best level of service we can. Also, right now, we have our property and evidence unit, which is comprised of 4 different individuals: crime scene technicians, a criminalist, property and evidence folks, digital media technicians, and others. We have a full-time crime analyst whose real responsibility is helping us understand what the nature of calls for service in our community are and how we can use data-driven strategies to most effectively deploy our resources to the community. We also have a full-service records division that's staffed by 7 and then a supervisor and a lead. I'm going to pause there for just a minute, see if any questions on this. I have not seen any come through, but I'll pause for just a second.
We do have a couple of questions already, if you want to answer them now.
I'm happy to jump in. If there are ones that are better suited for the end, I can always wait as well, but I gave a lot of information there in the last couple of minutes. So
yeah, I think they're all more general. So if you want to keep going, we can wait until the end. And if I have any specific ones pop up, I will let you know.
Okay, perfect. So again, kind of a little more information on Brighton PD in 2023. And I have just noticed an error. Our population is a little over 40,000. So I apologize. I meant to make that edit and I forgot to. We service approximately 21.5 square miles. Anywhere from 850 to 1,000 calls a week. Just this week, Kai and I were just recently talking. We're actually over 1,000 for this week. So that's a huge number of calls for service that a relatively small number of people deal with. 30 to 40 arrests on any one given week. And we've got this map up of our community because I think I think it highlights some of the challenges that we deal with policing a community of this type. A lot of highways up and down this community, as you can see. We've got Highway 85, we've got Interstate 76, we've got E470, Highway 2, Highway 7, and a number of other really busy roads. We are, in the past, Brighton was set off a little bit from the metro area, but we really no longer are. We are very much part of the metro area. We are one of the closer suburbs to the Denver area and one with quite a bit of room left for growth. So we continue to see more residents coming to our community. So what are our most significant concerns? What are our biggest issues that we're dealing with on a regular basis here in Brighton? And I would tell you that when I speak to the community, when I talk with citizen groups, businesses, all those folks, traffic is the number one concern that we hear about. Grown a ton in the last few years, and we're obviously seeing a lot more traffic on our roadways. We're seeing driving like we have not seen before. We've heard a lot about what the pandemic has done to some driving behaviors. So traffic continues to be our number one concern that we hear about from the community, which is why we continue to dedicate resources to addressing traffic concern.
And I'll jump in right here because we do have quite a few questions specifically about speeding.
Okay.
And let's see, we have Eagle Boulevard was highlighted. Everyone speeds. It's ridiculous. We spend plenty of time going up and down Bromley for nailing people for going 5 over. Maybe we can do something more productive. So there's a little bit of a counteractive comments there. We need patrol in Brighton Crossing and South 2nd, and on 76 where people drive no less than 85 to 90 miles per hour. So if you want to talk a little bit about that. And I will say our last quarterly community meeting was with Sergeant Struck with our traffic safety unit. So I encourage everyone to watch that one from last time. It was really informative as well. But Chief, I know you have some thoughts on this, so go ahead.
I do. Well, first off, I drive I-76 on a pretty regular basis as well. And I am sensitive to the concerns and the driving behaviors that we're all seeing out there. People are driving way too fast, and I wish we had enough police officers to put in every single one of these areas that are being discussed every single day, and conduct that data-driven traffic enforcement in those areas where we're seeing our serious crashes, our school zones, all those areas where we can really have an impact. What we will do is take some good notes on the areas that are being submitted here, and I will follow up with our traffic team, provide those areas to them, and we can try and do a little more targeted enforcement areas. But even as you can see in the comments, opinions are mixed on traffic enforcement. I will tell you that we do not, our focus when it comes to traffic, especially the enforcement piece of it, is education when possible. We would always prefer to be out there visible, trying to make those contacts where we educate motorists, make them aware of speed limits, let them know that we are out there doing that enforcement. And we really use our citations as a last resort when other measures have not helped to correct the problem. I will tell you that we write very, very, very few citations for 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. A lot of the citations that we're seeing on a regular basis are 10, 15 miles an hour over the speed limit and more. Those are really the offenders that we're out there looking to cite into court to answer for those actions. It's not those low speed ones, but we will take some good notes on those areas and follow up with our traffic safety team to get some additional enforcement in those areas. Okay, so unless you've got another one on that, I'll move on to kind of the next one of our big challenges.
We can save the rest for the end.
Okay. So property crime. Property crime is up in many, many, many parts of the entire country, and we're no exception to that here. We have seen an increase in crimes like auto theft. Auto theft has been in the news a lot lately. And I will tell you that personally, I'm excited that our legislature is taking up the auto theft issue. There is some legislation that's being proposed that I think will positively impact our ability to hold those offenders accountable and long-term reduce the number of cars being stolen, catalytic converters, all those different things. So I'm excited about where that's going, but we are dealing with some of those same challenges, and we're talking about ways that we can proactively address some of that stuff as well. I want to spend just a little bit of time on violent crime as well. Again, violent crime is up across much of the country, and we're no exception to that either. 2022 was a difficult year for us. We had several homicides. More than we're fortunate to live in a very peaceful community generally. Average 1 homicide every other year. We had 4, not including traffic-related fatalities last year. I'm proud to say our investigations and patrol team were able to investigate and solve every single one of those. But that's a lot, and we have to find ways to address that proactively when possible. So I've spent a little bit of time there, but I guess I'll close this little section of it that again, we're in the process of kind of trying to reevaluate our roles and responsibilities of all our different divisions. We're trying to spread out those workloads so that we're able to be responsive to community concerns quickly and effectively provide the policing services that this community demands. So I want to talk here a little bit about our mission and our organizational values. I think it's important because it ties into a lot of this. So I don't like to read directly off the slides, but I'm going to here. Our mission. Our mission is the Brighton Police Department exists to serve the community by protecting life and property, by preventing crime, by enforcing the laws, and by maintaining order for all citizens. All members of our department are equally empowered to perform their duties within the parameters of our organizational values. Our focus is based on community input and involvement. The values that we refer to in our mission statement, a close partnership with our community, quality service, living by the golden rule, service without prejudice, human life and dignity, maintaining high ethical standards, the protection of constitutional rights of all people, and the consistent and fair application of the law. We're going to talk the next slide a little bit about community policing, but what I hope that this illustrates to everyone that's watching this tonight is that we consider policing in the city of Brighton to be a customer service role. And not many in law enforcement think of law enforcement as a customer service business, but I really do believe it is. Our residents are our customers. They are the ones that set the expectations and set the precedents for what type of policing they expect in their community. And we're committed to following through with that and providing the highest quality service as we talk about there. We also certainly respect the fact that the police department cannot solve all crime and public safety issues in a vacuum. It requires that partnership with other community stakeholders, groups, residents. We treat others as we want to be treated. That living by the golden rule is something that is in our mind on every contact that we make. Service without prejudice, I really think speaks for itself. Human life and dignity. And I think the example I talked about a little earlier about the serious call for service today shows just how much we do value human life and dignity. We will do the work. We will do everything possible to de-escalate situations, to handle calls for service in a manner that pays respect to that human life and dignity. High ethical standards is absolutely critical in this profession. The constitutional rights are our ultimate guideline. That is what has to be the foundation for all actions that we're taking. And our residents deserve to know and understand that the laws will be applied fairly and consistently to everyone in the community. So this kind of segues a little more into community policing, but it's important to talk about this here so that it kind of shows some history. So this picture here is probably close to back in 2004 when I started with some of our old Crown Vics, and right on the cars, community policing since 1887. And we really do mean that. 62 years ago, Police Chief Vern Wohler, with a department of 5 people that did not work overnights, really all serious crimes and investigations were handled by the sheriff's office, no animal control, no anything like that. But way back then, Chief Wohler recognized that crime is not solely a police department problem. It is a community problem that we all have to work together with to solve. So again, just some more examples of our history when it comes to community policing. This is our 1976 annual report summary. And I'll leave it up there for a minute for people to look at, but a couple of highlights from this. Crime cannot be controlled without the interest and participation of schools, businesses, social agencies, private groups, and individual citizens. Okay, so way back when in 1976, we understood and recognized that then, and we did not invent this concept either. Sir Robert Peel, way back when, recognized and established a number of different priorities and foundational concepts for law enforcement that pays tribute to the fact that police really are just the people that are paid on a full-time basis to deal with issues that concern all of the community. It's all of our responsibilities to address. So again, here's Chief talking about what they've done to get this participation from the community. Endlessly strive to solicit this type of participation from these segments of the community because it is felt that controlling crime depends to a great degree on interaction between the community and the criminal justice system, which the police are a large part of. And again here, crime is a social problem that is interwoven with almost every aspect of American life. Controlling it involves improving the family life, the way schools are run, the way cities are planned, and the way workers are hired. Controlling it is the business of every citizen and institution. So this has always been our priority. This is not a new priority. We've recognized the importance of this for many, many years, and we will continue. So with that, I want to talk about some of my priorities looking forward and some of the things that are happening now in the department and in the future. So some of my initial priorities that I wanted to really highlight in this presentation tonight, but reestablishing the Brighton Police Department's commitment to community policing. And I talked about it in the last slide. We've always had that commitment, but we need to double down on that commitment. We recognize the importance of partnering with our community to address public safety and quality life issues that impact our community. I consider myself fortunate to have been part of this growing community for almost 20 years now. I care deeply about the future of the city, and I look forward to working in collaboration with all stakeholders and residents to address these shared public safety concerns. Our commitment is and will continue to be to community policing, and I'm going to work every day to strengthen the police department's relationship with all these members of our community. And I will give an emphasis on that. It's easy to strengthen these relationships with the parts of the community that we're already in and are already very supportive of the work that we do. But part of my job as the new chief of police is to emphasize strengthening those connections with portions of our community that we have not historically connected well with, and including some of those that are most impacted by crime and quality of life issues. Some of the things that we're doing now is just for myself is getting involved in community groups, finding opportunities to get out in front of the community and talk about what's going on in the police department. Some of the things that we're doing right now, attending our Chamber of Commerce luncheons on a regular basis, community groups like Rotary, Kiwanis, others, where we can get out there and share with folks what we're doing every day, what our challenges are, and how we can partner with them to do some of that stuff. We're exploring some really exciting partnerships with Platte Valley Medical Center right now. There's some shared issues that impact all of us that they desire to be partners with us on, and I look forward to enhancing and establishing some of those partnerships. Okay, next priority, and I really think it ties right into this, is working with internal and external stakeholders to establish a clear vision that identifies who we as a police department strive to be and provides a compass that all of our department activities, initiatives, programs can be measured against. As we went through the selection process for chief of police, all of our department staff had an opportunity to provide some feedback about what was important to them and what the organization needed as we grew and as we're finding ways to address ever increasing demands across the community. And one of those things is working with everybody involved. And by everybody, I mean, not just the police department. Yes, our staff and our members need to have a role in that, but our residents need to have a role in that. Our business community needs to have a role in that. Our schools, our hospitals, I'm sure I'm leaving out many, but we all need to have a role in establishing what that vision for the organization looks like long-term. Something that every dollar we spend, every budget we submit, every hour of overtime that we use is working towards achieving that long-term vision for the organization. We're in the process right now of identifying some folks to help us really identify that long-term vision. But my jumping off point that I've been trying to share with folks is that my vision long-term for the Brighton Police Department is ensure that we are providing the absolute highest quality public safety services available to our community, which help to support the city's vision of creating a star community in which to live, work, and play while still preserving those small town values that we hold dear. We hear a lot from residents about, it's more traffic than it used to be. Our history plays a big role in who we are today and who we want to be moving forward. And we really need to find ways to preserve some of those small town feel and some of those small town values while still finding ways to meet the demands of the future. I'm actually, I'm meeting, I have my first full meetings with the department next week. And during those meetings with the department, one of the things that we're going to be talking about is establishing that group of internal stakeholders who are willing to put in the work to establish this vision long-term, to help us really set that. And then that team will be tasked with rolling that out to the community and getting input from the community and all those different stakeholders that I talked about earlier. So next priority is, once we get that vision established, once we spell out exactly who we are striving every day to be, we need a comprehensive 5-year strategic plan that tells us exactly where we're going, where we want to get to, that vision, but also spells out the benchmarks and the milestones of how we get there. We know that there are specific needs. And once we've done a good job of establishing that long-term vision, we can really lay out that roadmap of how we get there. There are critical needs every single day. We have crime problems that require dedicated resources to deal with. And once we're able to really establish that roadmap, we can start taking those steps to achieve those things and provide those resources to our community, provide those tools to help address those quality of life and those public safety issues that often are troubling our residents. Okay, next priority as chief of police is complete a comprehensive department assessment. We really desperately need a data-driven assessment of what our department needs truly are to provide the level of services that our community desires and needs. Staffing and supervision levels for each shift. This having this department assessment done that takes into account some of the factors that are unique to our community, and we talked about some of them already. Our traffic and the roadways that surround us are a factor that are unique to our community that not every community has, that impacts resource needs and staffing needs. We're no surprise to anyone, but we're the county seat for Adams County. We have a lot of traffic, a lot of people come into our community every single day for the courthouse, the government center, the jail, the coroner's office. I mean, all these county functions that exist and happen in Brighton brings a lot of residents to our community. I talked a little bit about it earlier, but we're not a bedroom community anymore. We're not just it's not people commuting out of Brighton for jobs. We have great employment opportunities in town, and there are additional ones on the horizon. Vestis and some of our large employers in the community. These are bringing good paying jobs to our community, which also brings additional people into our community and impact how many officers we need out there on a daily basis, what specialty units, what resources do we need to address these unique issues. And then community needs and expectations have to be a factor in this comprehensive department assessment. The policing that's done in other communities is not necessarily the policing that's appropriate and what is desired by our community here. And so community needs and expectations have to be accounted for in that department assessment. So I really look forward to identifying some groups to help us do this department assessment, to have that unbiased outside eye come in and take a look at all these factors that I'm talking about, and help us establish that assessment that really tells us what we need if we hope to carry out that vision and meet those benchmarks and milestones on our strategic plan. This is critical in my mind for me as I advocate for additional resources for the department. Numbers are great and they help tell a picture, but to really understand everything, a department assessment will give me some of those tools that will go a long way to help explain to those other stakeholders what we really need to provide that information, to provide that level of service that the community demands. That's really what I had for you, but I guess I want to close before I move over to questions with just reaffirming that I think this is an incredibly exciting time for our community and certainly for the police department. There's a lot of growth and change happening right now, and there will be a lot of growth and change happening in the future. We have an unbelievable department full of concerned, caring, committed men and women in our sworn roles and our support staff roles throughout the organization, who are willing to go out there every day and do the hard work that it takes to keep this community safe. They are also, I'm confident, committed to doing the work to implement positive change, to make sure that our service continues to improve and that we continue to meet community needs. Some of the things that I've worked hard for over the course of my career is trying to encourage innovation and positive change and ensure the Brighton Police Department provides the best service possible to its customers in an equitable and transparent manner. Again, going back to 2004, I've seen a ton of growth in this community over the last almost 19 years, and I'm familiar with the challenges that are unique to us. I do want to preserve those small town feels and the values because I think it's really important, but I want to ensure that our residents have access to the absolute highest quality policing services available. And that's my commitment to the men and women of the department and our community. That's what I will be out there doing every single day. So I know there's a few questions, so I wanted to make sure and save a little bit of time. So I'll stop there and stop sharing my screen.
Alrighty. We do have a good handful of questions, so we can get started with those. And if you're just joining us, I'm Kylan, the Community Engagement Liaison here at the Police Department, and we're here with our new Brighton Police Chief, Matt Domenico. One of our first questions is, let's see. So I guess your thoughts on this comment: car theft, speeding, expired tags and insurance, drag racing, damage to property from high school students. These things need to be addressed.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And I mean, we talked about a little bit of a couple of those earlier in the presentation. But I will tell you that communication from the community really helps us address that. And I know Kristen may be able to talk about it, one of our other hosts as well, but we have our See Click Fix program, which is available on the city website, is a great way to submit those concerns about those particular areas and those particular concerns. Let us know. We want to know. I think oftentimes it gets, the belief is that the police know exactly what the problems are on exactly every neighborhood in the community. Sometimes we don't, and we need the community's help. So if there are those specific areas where these issues are happening, please submit it to us, whether it's a call to our non-emergency number, which I'm sure Kai will post in the comments for us. That's just fine. Submit it there. Our See Click Fix site is a great place to submit it. Or if it's an emergency, always you can call 911 as well. But we want to be made aware of it, and we want to work with you to find resolution to those issues. Some of the stuff around the high schools, I know there are some challenges. The big schools with a large student population in residential areas bring with it some challenges, but we have a great youth services team who works really hard to make sure that they're able to be accessible to residents and can work with them to find solutions. And we really have a positive history of addressing those concerns when they come out. I know there will always be some, and I recognize that, but we want the information, share it with us. And as far as, I'll speak specifically to speeding. We have Vision Zero is something the city subscribed to years ago, which is really the goal ultimately of zero traffic fatalities in the city of Brighton on our roadways. Our proactive traffic enforcement is really our locations that we're out there doing that are determined by our locations where we're having our serious injury and our fatal crashes. Those are the locations that we're out there trying to impact driving behavior on the roadways. But there are other neighborhoods in the city where it's a concern. Bring it to our attention. And we have a number of different tools. It's not always about just a police officer out there writing tickets. We have speed measuring devices, radar signs and trailers that we can post that can give us some really accurate information about what the nature of driving behavior on a particular roadway is. And that really helps us to drive enforcement. That data-driven enforcement activity is so much more effective than gut feelings. And it also can help educate residents. I think sometimes, I know I'm not, sometimes we're not always the best judge of speed, but when we get those things out there and we can really say, hey, here is what is actually occurring on a daily basis, hour by hour, highest speed, lowest speed, number of cars, average speed, all that stuff. It gives us a good idea of where to direct those limited resources so we can impact those issues. Auto theft is a systemic problem. I mean, there is a lot of issues impacting that, and we are looking at some ways that we can proactively go out there and be a little more, take a little harder line on some of that stuff. There's still some work to be done on that, so I don't want to share a lot of details on that right this minute. I want to make sure that we have a good plan in place. But like I talked about before, legislation changes are a part of some of these solutions. Are the standard of proof on some of these auto theft cases when we do make those arrests of people in stolen vehicles, it's a pretty significant burden to meet the standard of proof required on some of those. And that is part of what they're talking about this legislative session, is adjusting some of that stuff. Auto theft is an impactful crime for everyone that experiences it. But I often think that some of our people that are most impacted by an auto theft are some of the people where the crime doesn't really match the impact that it has. You know, vehicles under a certain dollar limit are a misdemeanor right now, which is being addressed in the legislation right now, and I'm hopeful that legislation moves through. But somebody who has a car that's worth $1,000 and that car gets stolen, it's more impactful on that person sometimes than folks who have additional resources and maybe multiple vehicles. This is often our only source of transportation to work, our only way to get to work to make money, get the kids to school, whatever it may be. And we need to ensure that our laws are respecting the impact that this crime has on families and residents. So I think that's part of it as well. I could talk about auto theft, quite frankly, for an hour.
We do have a question specifically about motor vehicle theft that says, why do police have such low assistance with this crime? So I don't know if you want to go into a little bit about how we take those reports and what our officers do when those calls come in.
Sure. And hopefully I address what we're looking for there. One last point on the previous question before I jump into that one. Colorado is #1 in the nation now, 2 years in a row in auto theft. And this is not a statistic that anyone is proud of. And I just feel really good that we are at least at a point that we're talking about it with all the stakeholders involved. And I'm hopeful that some significant change comes there. As far as, let me just kind of walk through what occurs generally on an auto theft. An auto theft occurs, a call to 911 is placed, and an officer gets dispatched out there. The officer responds generally to the scene, although there's oftentimes not a lot of evidence to collect on an auto theft. If someone, if it's a puffer where the door was unlocked and the keys are in the ignition, these people can be in and gone with that vehicle in almost no time at all. But the officer gets some basic information, owner information, vehicle information, license plates, VIN number information, all that information, and enters it into what's called CCIC, which is a shared database where stolen vehicles are entered, so that if any law enforcement officer in any jurisdiction clears the license plate or the VIN number of this vehicle, it automatically pops up and says it's a stolen vehicle, and that gives rise to getting a stop on that vehicle, hopefully getting somebody arrested if appropriate, and bringing charges forward. Now, that doesn't happen in every situation. And a lot of times the real work starts when vehicles are recovered. When vehicles are recovered, and again, this is Brighton PD specific, I can't speak to every organization in the state, but when Brighton Police Department has a vehicle that was reported as stolen that's then later recovered, our criminalist responds out to, absent the owner saying no, almost every single one of those, and collects evidence from inside the vehicle, fingerprints, DNA, receipts, whatever they can collect in that vehicle that may help to establish who was driving that vehicle. That's being collected, that's being entered, that's being assigned, that's being forwarded up to the detectives if they've been assigned to this case. And this goes a long way in helping us solve those crimes down the road. Now, I think oftentimes it doesn't show what some of the work being done. I think when, my car gets stolen, the cops show up, take a report and walk away. And I think oftentimes people feel like that's all that's being done. But there is a lot more that goes into those to try to hold these folks accountable. And, our success rate is not always as high as I would like it to be. And there are challenges that come with that. But we're putting the legwork in to put offenders in these vehicles and at least get them identified, do what we can. And if we can get them charged and held accountable for it, we will.
Thank you. All right. This question says, I'm new to Colorado. Do police cover highways, or is there a highway patrol or something like that?
Colorado's a little complicated, but yes, police do cover highways. And a lot of the jurisdictions on highways that go through municipalities are shared jurisdictions, meaning, let's use I-76 as an example. We're responsible for all of I-76 that runs through the city of Brighton. So if an accident occurs, we're the agency that responds out to that. But that does not mean that the Colorado State Patrol, which is the highway patrol in Colorado, cannot go out and do enforcement actions, cannot take reports on those roadways either. They have jurisdiction across the entire state of Colorado, but it is generally our primary responsibility for enforcement and investigation on our sections of those shared roadways.
Thank you. Let's see. How can we get more patrol near our home?
Well, I think I would again go back to See Click Fix. Submit a See Click Fix ticket. Let us know what the concerns are in your area and why that extra patrol is needed. And we're happy to do it. I will also say, and I'm sure Kai will post it, our non-emergency number is a great resource. We will get an officer that will call you back. Obviously, we have to kind of prioritize calls. It might take a little bit, but we'll get an officer to call you back. We do things like extra patrols in neighborhoods or at a residence when somebody's going on vacation. If you want us to complete some extra patrols in your house, we will absolutely do that. I think this is a really great time to talk about our community crime prevention page. So Kai, who's helping host here tonight, is our public information officer and our community engagement liaison. Kai's really sole focus is connecting residents with resources, connecting residents, being that liaison between residents and the police to help prevent crime when we can, to help address issues when it's occurring. And Kai has done a tremendous job of our website. We have a community crime prevention tab that has a ton of resources, a ton of material that will help you avoid being a victim of a crime, steps that you can take, lots of different things on there that can help do that. But she's a really good resource to help with some of that stuff as well. So let us know why we need those extra patrols, and we're happy to provide those.
Yes, I just posted the non-emergency phone numbers in the comments and a link to See Click Fix. And you can also always message us on social media. That would be reaching me. And a lot of times I might tell you to call the non-emergency line if it's something that would be best suited for talking to an officer. But if it's just a general concern, I can usually point that in the right direction. So don't be afraid to reach out to us in any of those ways. And yes, our website is undergoing a big update that's going to happen pretty soon. So that's really exciting too. But there's a lot of information on there. So I encourage everyone to check that out. We do have a couple more questions. What is your view/commitment on domestic violence and domestic violence victims? How seriously do you take protection order violations and reporting these violations to probation officers, making sure that these perpetrators are brought to justice?
Great question. So domestic violence is an incredibly serious crime. We've always taken a very aggressive posture when it comes to domestic violence enforcement. And on top of that, we are mandated by law when we respond to a domestic violence incident, if probable cause exists, which is the standard that law enforcement really operates off of when deciding whether they can or cannot make an arrest. But if probable cause exists, it is not discretionary. The officers cannot choose or choose not to make an arrest. They must. They shall make that arrest. Every offender of domestic violence gets booked into our county jail, where before they're released, they're served with any protection orders that are going on. And we take a hardline stance on domestic violence protection orders as well. Like if those are violated, we will take action on every single one of those. Police are one part of the domestic violence, the response to domestic violence. And I think it's important to highlight some of the other things that play a big role in domestic violence. I talked earlier about we had 4 homicides in Brighton over last year. 2 of those are domestic violence related. Domestic violence has serious and sometimes fatal consequences. Like there is no more serious a crime. It is absolutely a law enforcement concern, and we need to deal with it. But again, an arrest doesn't always solve the problem. So while we will make an arrest when we have to and required by law, getting victims in touch with resources and services to help them get out of these situations and escape those repeat DV incidents is really important too. Our victim services division, which I talked a little bit about at the beginning, every report of domestic violence, a victim advocate is dispatched and responds to connect with the victim personally. We don't ask if they want it. We don't do any of that. We just simply call them out, have them respond. They're able to provide a lot of really important information to those victims about what that protection order looks like, what the court process will look like, what will happen when and if the offender is released from jail, who else they can contact for support, for sheltering resources, for any of that stuff. We've got a really excellent, in fact, I would argue probably the best victim services division around. They take a ton of pride in what they do, and they are absolutely committed without end to domestic violence victims. So they have a tab on our website as well, and I would encourage you there. And I will give a little plug too. We are always looking for volunteers for our victim advocates. We can't serve all those victims with just our paid staff members, although we do have a good, comprehensive paid unit. We need volunteers as well, people that care about these incidents as well. So if you're interested in that, please explore our website there. Every time I get a chance, I'm going to ask you, explore our website. We have really done a lot, and there's more exciting changes coming there, but it is a resource for the community in so many different areas, and I hope people take advantage of that.
Thank you. I'll drop the link to the page about victim services as well. So if you're interested in being a volunteer, you can have that information. That'll be in the comments. We do have a question that seems like it might be more of a specific incident, but I don't want to ignore it. So maybe you can touch on this or give some direction. But this says, how about people stealing equipment from Affinity and destroying personal property? And then one of the new officers sworn in telling the property owner it could have been CDOT and refusing to take a report.
That sounds very specific, but I would tell you, please call. We have a whole supervisory command structure, sergeants, commanders. There's information on our website to make a complaint. You know what? Honestly, you're welcome to email me about it. Let's get offline here. Let's figure out what's going on, and let's get it addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times some people don't know that you can call our non-emergency line and request to speak to the on-duty sergeant. You can request to speak to the on-duty commander. So there are definitely, that's a sure way to connect you with someone in a supervisory position that you can talk to about your concerns, or you can always reach out to the chief. And then lastly, I'll give you one more question. What are your biggest challenges internally and organizationally that you think you're going to face in your upcoming time as being a new chief, and how are you going to tackle that?
Great question. So I think our challenges are part of our strengths. We've got a really established history of stable leadership here at the Brighton Police Department. Our last two chiefs have been in place for many years at a time, really laid some really excellent foundations for the future. But with that long-term stability, it gets a little tough sometimes to look with an unbiased eye on what we're doing. So I think one of our biggest challenges is going to be taking a really objective look at everything that we're doing organizationally and asking ourselves, is this still meeting the needs of our community? Is this still in the best interest of our organization, our residents, those people that were our customers, those people we're providing service to? So I think some time has to be spent there, taking a hard look at that. I think that anytime there's a change in leadership, I think that new leader is obligated to ask those hard questions about everything. And again, even though I'm not new to the organization, some of the things that I'm doing is pretending I'm new to the organization and taking that time to learn some of these processes and make sure I understand it and ask those difficult questions about, okay, we do this way. If the answer to why we do it that way is because that's the way we've always done it, I think that's one of those things that we need to take a little harder look at and go, okay, great. Is there a better way? And so I think that's one of the big internal challenges that we've got. Like I mentioned before, we have an incredible staff. We've got really committed people who care about this community, who want to do the right thing for it. And I think finding ways to effectively engage them and give them a voice in the future of the organization is another one of those challenges. So while they're positive things, I think from my perspective, I think they are challenges, and ones that coming from an inside, being coming up in the organization, it's incumbent on me to facilitate that, still that kind of, okay, we got a new leader, let's take a hard look at everything.
Thank you so much. And since we do have a couple more minutes, somebody just asked a question about something that you might want to share about, because it's kind of exciting. Will Brighton be providing mental health help along with officers on calls anytime in the future?
Oh, wonderful question. Thank you to whoever asked it, because I would have been kicking myself afterwards. No, last year the answer is yes. But last year we applied for a grant, and we were funded for that grant. It's a 3-year grant, a little over $500,000 to fully fund 3 years worth of a co-responder program. So what that will look like for the community is mental health clinicians responding out to scenes with officers in a lot of these situations where there's a mental health, an addiction, some of these other components that come into play that are not best addressed by law enforcement. Law enforcement is that first line responder, where that when there's an issue, they're often the ones that are called out to the scene to address it. But we don't always have the solution. We're not always the best person to be dealing with these problems. Mental health issues are better served by trained mental health clinicians. We work hard to get our staff. Some of these important trainings are, most of our staff have been through the crisis intervention training, which is a really comprehensive training for those that deal with people experiencing mental health crisis. But it's no substitute for a licensed clinician that can provide that on-scene emergency services and then connect those people with long-term services that can help them address the root cause of these issues. That is really one of those community policing programs, in my mind, that help address those root causes of crime and quality of life issues. So I'm really excited about it. The other piece that I would like to mention with it, part of that grant includes a research component. So there is part of our grant submission on that is identifying the metrics that we'll be measuring on this. And that research component is going to not only help inform long-term what we do moving forward with mental health services in, housed and provided by the police department, but will inform the entire criminal justice system about what actually works out there and help us to continue those responses. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's a really big deal. We're working through some of the logistical pieces of it right now, the contracts and office space and all those different things, but it is on its way. So it's going to be a huge step forward for our organization and our community. I'm really excited about it.
Yes, that was perfect, because that hasn't really been announced to the community yet. So this was perfect timing to come straight from you. And that was Nikki who asked that question. So thank you, Nikki. And we are just right on time, coming up at the end of our hour. So I want to thank everyone so much for joining us. I'll give one other plug for our website. We just announced last week that we'll have weekly public crime reports. So that's really exciting to kind of know what's going on in your community. Those can be found on our website. I'll also link those on social media each week. So take a look at those. And if you have questions, ask those in the comments each week too. We're happy to answer those questions. And is there anything else from you, Chief, that you want to say?
No, I just wanted to thank everybody for participating tonight, for joining in. These are really great opportunities. We've had a lot of success with these community meetings. And each time we do one, we get new topics that we need to focus on for our next one. So it's really exciting. We're continuing to kind of drive forward those opportunities for meaningful engagement with the community, those opportunities for transparency like Kai's talking about. That community crime report, that's the first time in a long time we've been pushing out actual crime information about what's occurring in our community to our residents. So please take advantage of that. Take a look. Like we want people to know what's occurring in their communities, what the challenges are we're facing. But I said, no, I didn't have anything. So now I'll just say, thank you. It's been wonderful. Appreciate the opportunity.
Cool. All right. And if you do watch this back after it's live and you have questions on social media, leave those in the comments and we will, over the upcoming days, do our best to answer those for you. So thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope you have a great night, and we will talk to you anytime you need us.
Thank you.